All right, welcome to CAPECAST. We've got the regular crew here, and the mythical Brit is.
It's Brit, bitch.
He couldn't resist coming in here to.
I rarely get to play it when he's here, so I have to take advantage of that.
Yeah, Alan, how are you doing?
Good, guys.
Nice. Brandon, what you got there? What is that?
Water. Dirty water.
You should get your. You should get something tested over there.
Yeah. That's screwball water.
It's Royston. Straight from the tap.
Maybe that can be our first endorsement on this show. Peanut butter whiskey.
There you go.
Yeah, might as well.
Right. Yeah. So we are back. Couldn't resist a chance to hop on here and talk about the second highest grossing movie of all time. After we all saw it this weekend, and it was a. I know Brandon and Alan. You went to the same screening as Brandon, right? You guys.
Yes, I did.
Together. He said you guys had a good theater.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Mine was a little better than Brandon's, but yeah, in the same theater. But you know,
interesting. All right. Britt, what about you? How was your screening?
It was okay. I mean, the screening itself was awesome. I was wanting to do IMAX. Didn't quite get to do IMAX because of the whole website crashes or whatnot. So we did the whole, studio movie grill. It's not an actual studio movie grill, but the same kind of concept. So we did that right down the road. Make sure we got there.
Nice.
The worst. Those are the worst theaters, in my opinion. I can't stand the food ones.
People bringing food in and out throughout the whole whole viewing.
I've had bad experiences. I actually watched Infinity War. I think it was Infinity War. Yeah, Infinity War in that one, and it was pretty bad. The person was helping a person right in front of me during the Red Skull scene and all of that, and kind of blocked out half the screen. But this time around, no interruptions. True fans.
I went to one of those theaters with Al. Suffice it to say, it ruined the screening for him for sure. He's very vocal about it. But yeah,
they're not.
I guess. Go ahead.
Not the best. Not the best.
Yeah. So before we get started, just kind of the usual rundown. If you it's the first time watching, it's our show CAPECAST. We basically talk about all things geek on here. Hit the subscribe button here on YouTube, notification bell, so you can stay up to date on all the videos we are putting out. We are on Twitter at CAPECAST Show, and we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/CiNEMACHiNEPod. Appreciate all of the support that we get there.
Indeed. So how do you guys want to do this?
Well, I know Britt's got his homework done. So I figure
I'm just saying, like, are we doing like spoiler free at first, then spoilers, or are we just going?
I think we just dive in
straight out the gate.
It's titled spoiler review on YouTube.
Okay.
So
all right.
Spoilers. Let's just dive in. You know,
we'll keep the spoilers tag up there so people.
Every time we try and do like a non-spoiler review, it's underwhelming because we just want to talk about more and we don't.
It's not really a movie you can.
That's true.
Really talk about in the spoilers.
That's really true.
If you want to get into
good.
It. Yeah. I like Spider-Man when he did the Spider-Man things.
All right, Alan, we'll go around and do kind of general reactions. Alan, you lead us off.
All right. Wow. No pressure.
Well, just tell everybody about your experience. You got to see me.
Man,
and
I
how
got to
great
watch
that
a movie.
was.
I got to watch a movie like 50 feet away from Brandon.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We were in the theater, but you we couldn't really see each other, but
that was by design.
It was. I think he purposely bought his tickets a few hours before we got a chance. That way.
Did he told you the wrong seats? Yeah, ours are right here. Yeah, if you get any next to these seats, we'll be right next to each other.
No, it was. I mean, but
we actually had some CapeCast listeners in the theater, believe it or not. The Freemans, who are frequents of ours, they don't really chime in the chat too much, but they are avid watchers. So,
Awesome.
What's up, the Freemans? All of them,
Yeah.
not Fremens, not to be confused with the Fremens. I know that you're on a Dune high right now, Ryan, but it's a different family.
Got it.
So yeah, it was good to see them. Sorry, go ahead, Alan.
That's what I was fixing to say.
Yeah, somehow Brandon started talking.
So you got anything else you want to add, Brandon? But no, I mean, honest to God, it was one of my favorite MCU movies for sure. I loved it. I told Brandon when we walked out, I was like, "Did you hear the guy like screaming?" And then everybody clapped. I was like, "That was me. I was that guy." Al would not have liked me. I can promise you that.
I hope he's not watching, because you're never coming on CiNEMACHiNE if he's watching.
But no, it was. I mean, it really was. It's like we talked about, or like Mandy and I talked about. I think Brandon and I talked about it as well. It was like the producers, directors, writers, they all were just sitting in a room like, I really think the fans would like this. So let's just put this in there. The I'm somewhat of a scientist. These little things that that have been memes for years now. They threw it in there, and it was freaking amazing, dude. I loved it. You're amazing. No, it was
easy there. Easy with the peanut butter whiskey, all right?
Sorry.
That's kind of my general take on it. I enjoyed the hell out of it. Yeah.
Britt.
Yeah.
What did you think, Britt?
Yeah, I mean, like
we all think you hated it. So
the thing is, with this one, they definitely listened to the fans. They hit a whole bunch of notes all throughout the movie, which we're going to be talking about tonight. But the biggest thing that what stuck out to me is this is my first movie in 2 years, like in a theater. So didn't travel out like we talked about before. Didn't do Shang-Chi. Didn't do Eternals. So this is my first Marvel movie in the theater since pre-COVID. And honestly, this is the loudest theater I've ever been in, with the fans cheering and clapping, and it brought back all the memories from the happy times to the 15 or 20 people that were crying in the movie. I mean, it was crazy, but I think the movie itself, they really did listen to the fans and gave us everything we wanted, and it was good. It was good.
I was one of those crying in our screening. So
I was too.
I was crying as well for different reasons.
What you got?
There was a 2-year-old beside me.
Oh no. God.
You know how particular I am about
that sucks.
Movie theater selection. I tend to be like, okay, I'm going to go to the most expensive showing I can get to kind of weed out the people that don't care about the experience.
Sure.
And there was a lady with her 2-year-old kid. I'm not sure if it was a boy or girl, but and they were talking the entire time until they fell asleep. They fell asleep like halfway through. May or may not have tranked it.
Yeah. Right, it's like, here, eat this.
Yeah.
Giving them the Benadryl.
Granted.
Here's some peanut butter whiskey.
Yeah. CBD gummies, something, you put that kid out.
I sat down. Luna was to my left, and then Melissa was on the side of Luna. And Melissa saw the kid, and she just like started laughing because she knew that I was upset. And she was like, "You want to
honey?
Switch?
It's not funny."
She was like, "You want me to switch with you?" I was like, "Please switch with me."
Yeah.
So she switched, but it didn't really change much because the kid was still talking, and I could still hear her the entire time.
Sure.
Or him. I think it was a girl. But yeah, other than that, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. And yeah, it was one of those things. It was kind of similar to how I felt seeing, not to the exact extent, but as far as theatrical experiences go, I go to 2 of them that are like, man, that was a great theatrical experience. The first one would be Dark Knight in IMAX, opening night. That was an amazing experience. Not in a just a great experience as in it was just an amazing movie not that I was like, had this buildup of years and years and years of fandom of this franchise, besides it being a Batman movie, but that was just it was just an amazing movie. The other time would be Force Awakens, just like returning to Star Wars and just how awesome and fun that movie was, and how it just kind of reignited the franchise and the crowd involvement. I always enjoy that kind of thing if it's like warranted.
Sure.
And that was one of them for me that definitely was. And this one was the same thing. I mean, and even though like a lot of these like quote unquote surprises and reveals we kind of were expecting to happen, it was just good to have that fulfillment. And also kudos to them for doing their best to try and bury all that and not have it out there in the marketing. Because it did,
nice
even though even though we kind of expected it, it was more like we're pretty sure these things are going to happen, but we weren't positive. There was still a little inkling of a doubt that maybe it may not happen. And not that the movie's
underwhelming appearance,
yeah, and not that the movie kind of rests on these reveals or these surprises or cameos or whatever, because it doesn't. Those are just like cherries on top, really. But and the big ones, which we'll get to, aren't just like like cameo appearances. They're legit story elements and take up a good chunk of the movie, and also serve as like really great pickups or conclusions to specific franchises that have came before it. And well, we're in spoilers, so it's not like I'm trying to like dance around it a little bit.
Fire away, Brandon.
But yeah, I just I thought that it was awesome. It was a really great experience. I can't wait to see it again, and I hope I can get back to the theater to see it. I'm not sure if I will, but I definitely want to. So 5 stars.
Nice.
Out of 10. No,
10.
Unsurprisingly, I agree with all these guys. This was one of the more fun theater experiences I've ever had. It was cool to go to a movie and like actually feel energy in the theater. After COVID and everything, with a character this big, and we went to like the 3:45 screening too. Like it wasn't like it was
like
on
a work
prime
day.
time. Yeah, like I don't know. I was surprised that it was packed and everybody in there was really any of the reveals happened. The place went nuts. And as we were leaving, obviously like the 7 and 8 o'clock screenings are about to start, so all the people dressed as Spider-Man are like filing into the theater. I was like, I remember when people used to do this.
Good old days.
I
did actually see. I think so. This is a side tangent because I want to mention this before we started. I'm pretty sure this is not necessarily related to Spider-Man, but when we were waiting to go in, somebody was dressed as Neo from Matrix Reloaded. So I wonder if they were having like a special fan screen at our theater. Anyway, and that just like reminded me of like, oh man, I remember when people used to do this.
Yeah,
so, sorry,
it's great. I was, the thing I walked away with from this movie, other than all the reveals, was this movie was loaded, and they could not have done a better job at balancing all of the stuff that they had in it, because it very quickly could have gone off the rails and gotten Spider-Man had a ditto situation with our deja vu situation from Spider-Man 3 the first time.
No, for sure. That's always the worry. Spider-Man 3 kind of set the precedent for like the too many villains, like worried fans.
Yeah, that's true. That's like what everybody always references when they talk about that. I very much appreciated how much it wasn't a they didn't necessarily use, everybody felt like they actually had a purpose, and they gave all of the, like, kind of what you mentioned, Alan, all of the member berry type stuff was really fun. The Doc Ock the Power of the Sun in the palm of my hands. Like,
Yeah.
it's not stuff that like a casual audience is gonna remember, but it's nice to have when you like these movies as much as these fans do, to have that kind of stuff snuck in there. So I appreciated how much like the hat tips and stuff to these characters are done in a really tasteful way. But yeah, it was an awesome movie, and I agree. I want to get back there and see it.
Yeah, and just to kind of like Britt kind of mentioned this as far as I think it was Britt that mentioned. Maybe you mentioned it, Ryan, at the beginning. But in terms of like what the groundswell of this movie is kind of amazing, considering so many things. Like, it's already surpassed Infinity War in terms of box office opening, and and that had 20 plus movies, of build up. And this is essentially just one character of build up, really. I mean, if you think about it, like,
Sure.
And the fact that they held so much back of the marketing, it's got such a like, and I don't know, because I don't know what, there had to be some sort of like guerrilla marketing element to this in terms of normal people wanting to show up to see this, because us avid fans, we knew more or less what we were getting into. But like, I talked to a lot of people that like superhero movies. They were like, "Oh yeah, there's a new Spider-Man movie," and I was like, "Yeah, you know what they're possibly doing with this movie?" And they're like, "No," and I would tell them like, "Really? That sounds awesome." Like, so, and these are people that like these types of movies.
This is a good point. Spider-Man has very quickly become kind of what Marvel's Batman, in the sense that they've got a lot of history with this character on screen now, and the fact that not there were superhero movies before Spider-Man, but Spider-Man 2002 was kind of like, when the craze just like exploded.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I'm sure that everybody loved. I feel like even the Amazing Spider-Man movies, the second one, that did well at the box office. I feel like they always perform pretty well. People have come to really appreciate that character, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I had a guy that I work with. Him and his wife and their younger son went and saw it last night, and they kind of what you were alluding to about the average moviegoer. He had absolutely no idea that there was even a chance of the other Spider-Man going to be in it, and then boom, there they are. You know what I mean?
That would be really cool to experience it that way.
Yeah. I was kind of jealous of that. Not gonna lie. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still squealed like a little girl when I saw.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the trade-off.
But,
that's the trade-off for people like us. We're too in the woods, but it's still, we still get excited. But yeah, it would be awesome to just like, if you love these franchises, but just don't have the time to pay attention to it like we do. Or you have a life. You have a life outside of the stuff.
What is that? What is this life you speak of? But no, he actually brought up, and when him and I were talking about it today, he said, and he had never even seen Homecoming or Far From Home. He went to go see it because of the villains from the other Spider-Man movies. Gotcha. That was what drew him to it. And he said, I really didn't even need to see the other ones. He said, I actually wanted to go back and rewatch the Toby and Andrew movies to get ready for it. Yeah. So it was pretty neat.
Yeah.
All right, Britt.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Let Britt talk. He's been suspiciously quiet over there.
Go ahead. All right. Well, hang on. We got just this in. It's just in.
Oh
boy.
Nice.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah. So you guys have already
we need a J. Jonah Jameson impression. We can't just have regular old Brit.
Spider-Man. Well, you got me blocked out here.
Oh no!
You're gonna have to switch me with Alan or something.
Hang on, we can fix this. Hang on. I got you. Hang on. Does that help?
All right. This is in Spider-Man. He's full of zeros. So yes, full of zeros, because you guys already hinted to this, man. $61 million global on this film. And this is like super impressive because if we think about it beating out Infinity War, this is pre-COVID, right? And that was the, like Brandon mentioned, 20 movie build up. Every character you could think of in the MCU was in that movie. And this was just Spider-Man. All it was just one character taking this down with a bunch of villains from the older movies. Yes, we all assumed we'd see the other Spider-Man, but, you know, Andrew constantly said he wasn't part of it, and it was a Photoshop job.
I saw someone tweeted earlier today that it was a clip of Justice League when the Flash is talking to Bruce Wayne.
Yeah,
He's like, he was like, this is what Andrew Garfield's gonna do in his interviews from now on, and it's the clip of him saying, "This is a guy that looks exactly like me, but is definitely not me."
Handsome Jewish fellow. Yeah,
Nice
so
Jewish boy.
we can all agree that Andrew Garfield is the werewolf now, right?
Yes,
The answer. He is the werewolf.
yeah.
Well, what was funny was if you've seen the clip or whatever, and then you watch the movie, you can actually see exactly where that clip was in there. So it's
yeah.
Again,
Which is amazing
to
that
them
leaked.
It's like for that to leak, and then also kudos to these guys of like continually having to say it wasn't them because you're gonna stumble up on there. And
I felt so bad for Garfield.
every interview about
he was getting
Tick, Tick,
hammered.
Boom or whatever turned into Spider-Man.
His Oscar nominated movie is just Spider-Man questions in all of his press.
I mean, it brought attention to Tick, Tick, Boom. I mean, that's the best thing that could have happened to that movie, honestly.
Yep.
So.
But yeah, so it was.
Any other news bulletins you got there, Britt?
Besides money? Again, Spider-Man, he's a menace. He's putting people in danger, getting them out of their house in the theaters.
Oh yeah, okay.
But yeah, pulling them out to the theaters and getting them out there. I mean,
all right.
You guys apparently had a shooting at your Atlanta Buckhead theater up there because somebody was sitting in somebody's seat,
and it wasn't Chris. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah. But, kind of like wrapping it up, and we're going to be jumping into the different areas and stuff. But like, the biggest thing here is I think the biggest bad thing about this movie is it was just too perfect. Too perfect. They really
like
did
something
listen
Al would
to the
say.
fans. Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
totally.
It's too good.
Yeah.
I don't like
it's
it.
too perfect. Too perfect. No, I mean, like, honestly, though, they listened to the fans. They had so many references, like, kind of going to Brandon saying, he wants to go see it again. Like, I want to see it again because I honestly missed so many of the stuff just because it was so much coming at you. But at the same time,
no downtime in this movie at all.
Yeah.
Like,
the
downtime was like scenes where Charlie Cox was popped in there, and I was like, I can't believe this is happening right now.
It's funny.
I mean, that one just came out of nowhere. No warning. You just, what the, there he is.
I missed the entire exchange of the Charlie Cox scene for the most part because not because of that kid. My kid didn't know who that was, and so I was trying to explain to her, "That's Daredevil. He's whatever." And then I missed. The scene was over by the time I got done explaining it to her.
She's like,
that's
whatever,
the one
Dad,
show you can't watch. You can't watch because that show is too.
She was
violent.
like, because everybody cheered, and she was like, "What? Why is everybody cheering?" So I
she was like,
to her,
"What? Why wasn't that Ben Affleck? What are we doing here?"
I was
say
so
this
though.
when I saw him in there.
That was that you talking about like really fun moments, like obviously for us and the fandom and whatever, the initial like other Spider-Man reveals through the portals is amazing. But the thing that like was awesome to me was Luna's reaction to Garfield's Spider-Man coming through the portal, because we had just watched the movies and she saw him come through and she just like she like lifted her hands. She was like so excited. Then Toby comes through and she was like, "Who is that?" And I was like, he's the other Spider-Man that that fought Green Goblin and Doc Ock.
He's really
old.
Cool church pastor.
This is an old guy.
He's old. Yeah, he's the youth pastor, the cool youth pastor. That's
I was
the
like,
same
he's
thing.
old now. She doesn't understand that those movies, like she just watched them, so she thinks that he should look like the Spider-Man that she watched last year. So
same
anyway.
as Luna. Cal, when the portal opened and I saw who was coming, but before I could even say it to Cal like reaches over, he's like, he like smacks me. That's Andrew Garfield. Like he knew it.
Nice.
It was
You could like
Yeah.
feel the groundswell.
I did the same to
when
Katie.
that
I just
portal
smacked her.
opens.
I
He
was like,
turns
"That's
around.
Andrew
You see the
Garfield."
you see the
Yeah.
big eyes and the whole theater just
Yeah.
like, oh, it was
Yeah.
really cool.
It was awesome.
When he
And-
he pulls the mask off when he comes through, and it's like, what is going on?
Hold for applause,
No.
Andrew.
I
Yeah.
mean, he really pulled that off. Like
That's really what it felt like, though.
Yeah.
Like it was very much a hold for applause moment, and it worked really well.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I just
and
you couldn't have smacked the smile off my face when he walked through. I mean, and I know everybody around me was the same way. Everybody was just smiling and
I
cheering.
love
and
when
clapping.
he popped up on the ceiling with the one hand too to like
It's not
prove
enough.
he was.
It's not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That cobweb in the corner.
Well, and I think that's what this movie did so well is like they, you kind of mentioned there was so much they wanted to pack in this movie. And honestly, like, yeah, Spider-Man 3 did a terrible job of doing that, as well as Spider-Man 2 with Andrew Garfield. Like, we ended up having 3 different villains in there, and Rhino had like 5 seconds on screen. Like, there was so much buildup and so much anticipation, but I do feel like they did it well in here. So you had Daredevil, one of the first scenes of the movie kind of coming in there like, oh, it's, is he even going to do anything? Is he just sitting at the table being his, lawyer? But like when the brick comes flying through and he grabs it, and he's just like, yeah, it's because I'm a great lawyer. Like, you're already revealing he's here. He's here in the MCU. It's Daredevil.
I also loved that. So I kind of like get the vibe that he's going to be, if he's not the same character as he was in Daredevil or variant, he's going to be similar. Just the way that he kind of carried himself in that scene, and that makes me very happy because I was very afraid that you're going to get the Marvel or Disney nerfing of that character. And by no means that still could be the case, but it just felt like he played that character like he played it in the Netflix series.
Yeah, and I don't think they're going to nerf him too bad. Like, I mean, if you think about like the Hawkeye series, right? Mm-hmm. So again, other spoilers for Hawkeye. Like, we just had Kingpin to kind of reveal we're going to see more of him, tomorrow on the episode. So we've got his world here. And if you guys didn't know, Hawkeye's episode tomorrow is going to be whatever like the next step up is in their ratings. So it's not quite PG-13, but it is like violence and language.
No, it's also like really long. I think it's
grittier.
close to an hour.
Yeah.
For that one.
Yeah. So I don't expect Daredevil to pop up there. I feel like if they throw him in that episode, it's like giving away too much about Spider-Man of him being in the MCU, and it kind of takes away that shock value. But I have seen some rumors and stuff that he'll be in like I think the She-Hulk series and a couple other spots, making his debuts as Daredevil. So yeah, I think that they'll keep that. I mean, even Hawkeye's been a little gritty at times. Again, not to the extent of the Netflix episodes, but like, we're closer. We're closer.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's not going to be as brutal as the Netflix show was, but there was just a kind of a rawness to that character that I really enjoyed. I just hope they.
I feel like they can hold on to some of that, and I mean, technically they did exist in the same universe as our Avengers. So.
That was one of my favorite lines of the movie. Speaking of the Avengers, when Toby, I don't want to brag, but I was part of the Avengers. He's like, the Avengers? That's great. What is that? What is that?
Is it a band, or were you in a band?
Yeah.
That was awesome.
The Avengers. That's great.
That dialogue. That I'm so glad that they gave them just time to talk to each other about their own
lab
universes.
Sequence and stuff. Yeah, like talking about his web shooters, Toby's web shooters.
It's so great.
Yeah. That was awesome. The when Garfield said when they were called Peter 1, Peter 2, Peter 3, and he said Peter 3, I mean, just good. I need another movie with him. That's just all there is to it.
Agreed.
And who knows? Who knows? As we get into the end credit scenes, we'll talk a little bit more about that, because we could see more of both of those Spider-Men, at some point in the universe. So kind of moving from Daredevil, kind of those, pieces. We got the Sin 6, Sin 5 plus the tree that ended up in the prison as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, what did you guys think? We already saw most of these guys in the trailers. We saw that we were going to get these 5 guys. We had some changes to a few of them, like Jamie Foxx's character. But what do you guys think? Do you think they handled them well, bringing them in there? Is there any other villain you would have liked to see from those other movies as well?
You could definitely.
Jamie Foxx was definitely the weak link.
You could tell
I will say I appreciated that at the beginning of the movie they had him appear as the blue thing, but
he's just being himself. He's just being Jamie Foxx with maybe an extra X on the end of his name.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was going to say.
He did not play that character at all in this movie. He just my appearance has changed, thus my entire character will change.
I am no longer a dork. I am a cool guy.
Yeah.
And I'm.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my
in this universe. I'm cool because reasons.
It just seemed
the energy's different here, Brandon. So I'm gonna be cool now.
It just seemed like that was his one stipulation on returning to the role was I'm not playing that guy again. I'm going to be cool.
I would have said then that's okay. We'll get somebody else because
he
was the weakest link in my opinion.
I mean, he had his moments, all of them did, but he was not. I mean, doesn't mean he's not the weakest link, but he had his moments.
Goodbye.
Like his little exchange with Andrew Garfield about, I'm not gonna lie, with the suit and everything, helping out the poor people. Kind of thought you were black. It just that was funny. That was funny to me.
What was that?
I liked
what was that? Can you do that impression again?
No, I'm not doing that impression again.
just the subtle reference.
The only thing that was good that came out of that was the hinting that Miles is out there somewhere.
It just felt like a different person to me.
The other character I felt like really didn't get anything was the Lizard. Like, I feel like we got to see Sandman kind of show that he's not necessarily all evil. We saw the same thing with Doc Ock. We got more story with Green Goblin. Like we said, Electro was kind of weak. I mean, he still had something pushing him, but like I feel like the Lizard just kind of showed up, go fight, but that's about it.
Yeah. That's probably
I agree. At the end of the day, I guess you do need to bring in somebody from Garfield's universe, though.
I mean, he only had those guys.
You're not going to bring in Rhino, and you're not going to bring in Goblin.
You're not going to have his Goblin. Yeah, that's all I was going to say. So that's what you got.
I rewatched Amazing Spider-Man 2. I rewatched all of them except for Spider-Man 3 leading up to it. And when I was going through Amazing Spider-Man 2, I was like, every time I watch that movie, I'm just like, what is he doing as Harry Osborn? Like, he's just, it's bad.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I was very excited for him playing Harry because I liked him coming out of like Chronicle and other things. But no. Anyway, I definitely thought that which it's not like I don't think it's absolutely necessary for for Lizard and Electro to have some sort of like major story arc, so to speak. You got really great ones with Goblin and Ock, and even Sandman to a degree. Having that version of him come through, just like helping Peter to begin with, because he came through after his turn in Spider-Man 3 like that at that point. So, but still being untrusting and so there were cool little payoffs to those arcs, but
I appreciated. Good.
No, it was good. I was just gonna say it was definitely. I think that really like the focal point was obviously Doc Ock and Goblin, and the other ones were just kind of like cannon fodder.
Even those two, like I appreciate. It was cool that like these were the villains. But they also weren't necessarily like the real villain. The real villain was kind of the chaos that was happening in this movie. And they were able to have some fun with these characters, like the nanotech thing when,
Yeah.
he just like couldn't control his arms anymore out of the gates. Like,
well, it's also like the real villain is also kind of like, in a way, it's like in all these movies, it's just Peter's good nature. Like he always he's so good natured that he wants to do, he thinks the best of everyone, and it always ends up biting him in the butt, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Which is,
and his policy of like no kill and things like that, which Spider-Man has always had, is kind of the other issue of that.
Yeah.
It did have the with great power line dropped in this one, which was fun.
Yeah.
That was a question that I had. Have they ever made an Uncle Ben mention? Like, is this Aunt May, was she married, or that was just glossed over and never mentioned, and she's just a single aunt?
I don't remember.
To my knowledge, Mandy and I were talking about it, and I don't believe it's ever.
I know he has a conversation with Tony in Civil War about something, and I haven't watched it in a while, so I can't remember exactly how that conversation went. But seemingly it was hinting at, and in my head, maybe it was my own like little like headcanon that I just like, oh, he's already had this, his uncle's already dead, and because I remember he mentioned some like bad things happened, something, and but maybe it's just an assumption.
But it's clear when he's talking to the other two Peter Parkers that his Uncle Ben didn't have the same impact on him that their Uncle Ben's had. So
right.
Whatever he was, whatever extent he did, if he did exist, it wasn't to the extent that the others had.
I love that they, instead of like having, when the other two Spider-Men come to talk with Peter for the first time, and instead of just having both of them be like, yeah, we both had an Uncle Ben that had this, we had this same, like Toby focuses on his Uncle Ben, like those moments with Uncle Ben. Andrew focuses on his Gwen moments.
Yeah,
comparing them to his MJ, like she was my MJ, and that whole thing. Like it was just great that they, like, just in general, not just those moments, but this whole movie just really paid a lot of respect to those movies that came before them, and really had lots of great payoffs for those characters. Which was
that's the stuff that was awesome, like the redemption for Garfield, little redemption sequence there. I loved the stuff that, and I think I mentioned in our text message, I was excited about more Garfield just from the performance, but I love like the little drops about him like kind of going a little darker, and he's at a certain point he stopped pulling his punches, and there's just some cool stuff that could be explored if they wanted to.
So kind of, and now that we're like really diving in with the Spider-Man, so again, we got the reveal, we actually had all the Spider-Man here. Again, we all assumed it wouldn't make sense to only have the villains, right? But there was always that worry, right? That was going to be a 2-second cameo, or it was going to be an end scene or something like that. But they really got their time on the screen. So you guys kind of hinted at it a little bit before, but I want to kind of go around the room and what were your guys' reactions like when we saw the sling ring, the portal open, Spider-Man standing in the distance, and then you kind of were like, is that? And then, you got that reveal on both sets of Spider-Man. So I'll start with you, Alan, because I know you kind of already talked about it a little bit, but like those moments, how was your theater? How was your reaction when they stepped through that portal?
Oh, dude, it was like I was 10-year-old Alan sitting next to my 10-year-old son. I mean, we were geeking out, dude. It was so freaking awesome. Like I said, you couldn't have smacked the smile off my face when Cal realized who he was. I mean, I had seen it, but Cal knew. And I was like, man, I have succeeded. No matter what I do, that kid could end up, doing some really awful things in life. But by God, he recognized Andrew Garfield in the movie. But no, it was those moments, those two, and Toby when he comes out and he does his little, classic Peter Parker wave that he did, that weird stiff hand wave that he does. It was I don't know. To see them, they both still pulled off those personality types that they had in their movies, where Toby's Peter Parker was a little drier, and then Andrew's was a little more animated. It was I don't know. It was it was fun. It was really fun. I mean, that's really the best way I can describe it. It was just, it was fun.
Yeah. How about you, Ryan? Any other little bits within there?
Yeah, so I did want to mention too, I appreciated how there were a couple of moments before Ned actually opened the portal up in the movie beforehand when like they were just like, what were those sparks? And then people would just like, they would just ignore that anything happened. I enjoyed that as kind of a little bit of a narrative buildup for his ability to open those portals. But yeah, I mean, I was a kid at the candy store when Garfield came through. Same kind of thing you mentioned. Like you could see off in the background, like that was, he got the big eyes, and he pops through and pulls that mask off. And I loved his initial. He's just great in the role, but I loved his initial reaction to like what was happening. He's like, a couple days ago I was here, and now I'm like. He's just like doesn't understand what's happening, and then when Toby comes through, just the wave, like he's in his street clothes, which makes it even better somehow. Like, I mean, it was awesome, and I loved. I know we talked about on here how Al's not a big fan of theater reaction. I freaking love it when you get the fandom that we are all a part of, like when you can gather with a group of folks who are just love this stuff and experience that kind of moment together. It's cool. The energy when both those guys were revealed, it was awesome. So.
How about you, Brandon? Did Melissa recognize him right off, or how was that experience?
Yeah, I mean, she probably because of me, like she knew that it was a possibility, so she was probably looking for it. But I don't know. It was just one of those things where, again, it was just a very satisfying payoff. They could have easily used this moment to have Ned like, show me Peter, and then it shows Andrew Garfield. Nope, that's not it. And then he goes to another one. Nope, that's not, like they could have had them in the suits. Didn't have to have the actors come back for any reason, and that could have been it. And it would have been it's cool, but but for them to have to bring them back in such a full capacity for a third of the movie, pretty much, kudos, and to hide it, it was great, man. I mean, I Spider-Man, for Melissa and I, our first date ever was going to see Spider-Man, and so Spider-Man holds a lot of there's a lot of weight with that character for our relationship. And we had an anniversary that we went to see Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 2. And just, like for us to have, because we dated for 7 years before we got married, been married for freaking ever now. and so Spider-Man has been a constant as far as they've continued to put out movies. So we've always went to see Spider-Man movies, and to have this movie, to share this movie with her and Luna, was to have all this culmination come together it was just special. It was fun and super rewarding. So it's amazing.
Absolutely.
Amazing. It's amazing. You're amazing.
It's amazing.
You are amazing. You are.
I love
amazing.
You can even say it's spectacular.
Yeah, we were talking about the scenes between the different Spideys. I also love the like back cracking scene.
Yeah.
You got a back thing? Yeah.
Well, that's a great little nod because of Toby's back injury from Spider-Man 3 and how he was notoriously a super diva about it. And it was there's a lot of production issues because of that. And so for him to like make light of that was cool to see.
I just love. I got a lower back. I got like a middle back thing going on.
Yeah, dude, they're all that banter. Like it's all great Spider-Man banter just in general, but just to have the three of them and the weight of all three of them having those conversations is amazing.
Yeah.
I want to find an alien. That was it. Yeah.
And you kind of find it to like
the Avengers. That's great. What is that?
We got a few payoffs too from some of the story arcs. You guys mentioned it before too with Garfield, right? So like with Gwen and not being able to save her, but then this whole thing of Spider-Man jumping, and we saw that in the trailer, and then it having to be Garfield that actually jumps and saves her, which I didn't mention it in our chat, but Tom actually spoiled that on an interview a couple days ago because Zendaya was being asked about the stunts of her falling, and he was like, "Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there." So,
Nice.
And then I think it was Jimmy Kimmel or somebody was like, "Well, wait, look, like you catch her in the trailer," and he goes, "Oh, yeah, I do," and like Zendaya's giving him like death eyes. So
Nice.
Again, another one of those looking back spoilers.
I loved how he caught her and had like this little emotional moment. So he's like, "Are you all right?" She's like, "Are you all right?"
Yeah. I mean, what's funny is
that's the thing that sorry, go ahead, Alan.
Cal looked at me and said, "Dad, are you all right? Are you crying?" Because I had tears in my eyes right then. I was like, "Oh, you got it. That's awesome."
If I have to kick it down any points, it's the whole Marvel thing of using humor to undermine emotional moments. Like, I can't stand that. I can't stand when they do that. They didn't do it a ton, but there are moments like that I'm like, you should have just left it. Should just let it ride. And that was a moment that I really I mean, Garfield is a master at emotion, like delivering on those emotional moments. He and Tom both are great at it. Yeah. But if I'm being picky, I felt like it was very, very abrupt for him to have such an emotional reaction. Like they needed it. They needed an extra beat of him.
That whole sequence could have been drawn out a little bit more.
Yeah.
I agree.
I love the significance of it. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love that moment. I love the redemption for his character. I just wish it had just a little bit more time to get to that point.
I think you kind of have to match.
I'm not asking it to be more heavy-handed. I like the subtleness of it, but I just felt like it was like almost a little too rushed.
I think you have to kind of match if you're going to do something like that, you have to match the artfulness of the original attempt, or maybe exceed it. And that sequence is freaking beautiful in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
The little web hand,
for sure.
Like,
So I mean, obviously the impact could have been much greater if they did that.
And talking about impacts and stuff, we hinted at it earlier, but we had this Peter's Uncle Ben scene, but this time it was with Aunt May. So we had again Aunt May's story coming to a conclusion here. We had a saying, and you mentioned it earlier, Ryan, but this time it was, with great power there must come great responsibility. And for the non-comic book people out there that don't know this is the actual quote from the comic. So it wasn't uttered by Uncle Ben. It was actually just in a frame written at the bottom of one of the pages of the comics, kind of insinuating it, but it wasn't actually from Ben. So the previous Spider-Man, they kind of took that, shortened it, and used it in the movie. So I just thought it was kind of clever again that going back to all those Easter eggs, all those things that they added throughout this movie, like even just doing that with Aunt May and kind of going through that. So you mentioned it earlier, you guys were on the crying side of the scene, which again, very strong, emotional, powerful scene. But we'll start with you, Ryan.
Go ahead. So his when he gets like vulnerable, it's hard not to like tear up in his seat. Same thing with the Infinity War when he's being blipped away. Cold. He's just great in those moments. And this sequence had me shedding actual tears. So some serious, and it's nice we talk about this with a lot of the lack of this with the DC stuff recently. Just like they packed so much emotion into this, but even with all the hits on the comedic beats, like this, Katie looked over at me and when we got out of the movie, she was like, so you're crying pretty good at that Aunt May scene. It's like, yeah, I was. But yeah, that was a powerful one for sure.
How about you, Alan?
Yeah, I agree. Holland, he has that way. I don't know if it's just because I know he's not like super young, but he looks like a kid. So, kids crying always gets me anyway. But he that whole moment where he's trying, and it kind of brought back that, well, he is just a kid thing, when he's like trying to get her to wake up, hey,
I loved
just
her
talk to me, just
and how her the way she was. A lot of credit goes to her too. The way that this scene kind of like played out, it wasn't like she was just on the ground, like blood slowly like coming out of her mouth, like she's dying. She's like, I'm just trying to catch my breath. Like she's trying to like stay strong for him.
Yeah,
but
it was that was. Whew. And then the follow-up with J. Jonah Jameson, giving his monologue about how death follows him, and then him, like, that moment where he's kind of staring at the screen. I guess it's Times Square. I guess he's standing behind the screen on Times Square watching it. And he's like I know it's probably all CG, but the rain is coming down over his eyes and he's not even blinking. Like he's just,
they coated him up with like antiperspirant and poured a bucket of water on him.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it was a really good shot. And it, it's one of those moments.
You're my brother.
We cutting or we crying?
Yeah. And I mean, the
good to the scene.
and the good thing that came out of that, I mean, it like really made you believe like his anger, right? Like, again, going back and watching some of the old Spider-Man movies, like when Uncle Ben dies, it's like you get some of the emotion, but I really did feel like Tom Holland like had that emotion when he was going to kill the Green Goblin. Like you felt like he was going to do it, right? And so I felt like that was a great moment, kind of leading into that, and really, now making the villains a villain. Because to your points earlier, like when we started this, the villains were just kind of there. There wasn't a bad guy feel.
And a great teaching moment for him, having the other Spider-Man there, having Tobey's especially, to give him that, a little bit of, someone who's been down that road and saw that, it didn't end the way he expected it to, in terms of having some sort of satisfaction or, being able to, thinking that it would make things better as far as, taking the life of the person that took the life of who he cared about. So I think that that's, again, how they tied things in with the other, stories that have came before them just was great.
Yeah, but like listening to that interview with Marissa Tomei, where she was talking about how her agent was the one who was even got it. It just, when that scene came up, I was like, she's a good actor. If she didn't want to play this role, man, she did an amazing job.
That interview was amazingly hilarious.
Yeah.
Did you watch that, Britt?
Yeah. I saw that one, and then she had the
still
interview
debatable.
Yeah.
It was. I agree with you. I mean, like, you see the Green Goblin run her over, and you're like, oh man, like she's hurt, and then you can kind of tell. But it was, to your point, Ryan, like she was trying to be strong, right, to go through that. Like, even though she knew she was hurt really bad. So the reveal, right, with the blood and stuff, that was really intense.
Yeah, and Happy.
Well,
and Happy's moment too, where he's trying to protect Peter. Run, Peter, run. And he's trying to stop the cops and everything. It was just that whole scene was just this huge flood of emotion. It was it's crazy.
It's a good method of subversion too, just to like, because you expect, okay, the glider impels her or something. She's a goner, and then she gets up and walks around like, whoo, okay, she's good.
Yeah.
And then it brings you, gives you a little bit of relief, and then takes you back down a peg.
Yep.
So
that's trademark. That's trademark Marvel. You can't have a trademark Disney, more like it. But you can't have a Disney movie without some sort of adversity to go through. So there's got to be that death in there.
Yep. And so kind of going through that, we got into kind of the final scenes. At this point, right, we're just at the we're at the spot where we've got just the Sinister Five, I guess, that are there, but everything starts breaking. We're seeing characters, and this is another thing I want to see. I want to go back and watch it and kind of start to almost like freeze frame some of the purple breaks and see if I can actually recognize any of the characters that are kind of off.
You're looking for Mephisto, right?
Pause.
Of course, of course. But there was a lot of people they showed just very briefly coming into the world, and really it just kind of turned this whole thing around where they had to change up the spell. So we already kind of talked about them, fighting and going through that, but they had to change up the spell for everybody to forget Peter completely, not just Peter was Spider-Man. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts when it came to that being kind of the ending of almost like a reboot, a reset of Spider-Man, and kind of pulling him back from where he's been over the last few movies?
Yes, this is awesome. I was so excited when they went traditional suit, and just the way everything's kind of playing out with Kingpin and Hawkeye, and I really hope they go the route that I think that they're going with that character, because it'll be really fun.
I'm of two different minds about it. On one side, I don't understand if I try and think about the mechanics of it in terms of, well, if everybody doesn't know Peter Parker,
Kevin
all
Smith
these
in the house
that were built around. Oh, look at it.
Made it. Made it.
All the relationships that were built around Peter, like Ned and MJ and Happy, we see them still having these, like Ned and MJ's relationship was only because of Peter, so it wouldn't have existed if they didn't have Peter in the mix. So and same thing for Happy. I mean, there's a lot of you just have to run with it and buy it. And then I do really, really appreciate and love the ending of Peter. He makes his promise to MJ that he's going to come back and find her, and he's going to tell her what's happened. He's going to win her back over, whatever. Then he gets there and he has that conversation with her, and then he's about to tell her until he sees the scar, the cut on her head, and it just stops him in his tracks. And she's like, "It doesn't hurt anymore." And he's like, they don't spell this out for you. You just kind of have to infer it. But he sees that she's happy, Ned's happy, they're not in danger. And they were always in danger and always going to be in danger. And that's kind of any kind of superhero arc, their loved ones are the ones that suffer. And so for him to recognize that, and again, subtly, they don't nail you over the head with it. You infer it, and it's really great. And for him to just walk away from it and then seemingly leave them in the past and let them live out their lives, and he's going to start this new life, and he's classic struggling
crappy
Peter
apartment.
Crappy apartment, going to be struggling for rent. This Peter is different because he's had Tony, and so Tony's kind of supplied all his tech, and so he hasn't struggled in that way. And that we'll get to see, hopefully, depending on how things progress, a more classic and with the suit as well, just not having that Iron Spider suit and all the tech.
This kind of is his kind of coming of age trilogy, which I'm sure is intentional. But him losing Aunt May, he's on his own now. I feel like he's kind of he's been through some stuff now, so he's not hardened, but he's a little bit more ready for being this hero on his own than he was when these movies started. So that's what excites me. I don't know. I'm very intrigued.
That's what I was going to say. You could easily look at the Far From Home title as all these characters coming from all these different versions, all these variants, and all that. But it's probably more to do with the fact that, like you said, Ryan, at the end of this movie, he's further from anything he's ever been. He's further from home than he ever was before. He's a totally different character.
Apartment on his own. He's
getting his I like the setup that they had anyway for most of that.
I mean, but and as far as just being completely alone. Like all the other versions, he's had somebody. Aunt May's always been a mainstay. He's had somebody in his life. Yeah. Everybody is gone. Tony's gone. Aunt May's gone. MJ, Ned, everybody. He's just, he's just Peter, and that's it. He's got nobody.
And I think that this is kind of one of the things Marvel really probably focused in on too, because we've talked about this on a lot of the other Marvel movies. Like Phase 2 had a big issue. And Phase 2's issue with Marvel was the fact we got off of Avengers, and every time something happened, you're like, well, where's the rest of it? Right? You had Thor, Dark World, the whole world and universe is going to end, but like literally it's just Thor by himself. There's nobody he calls, right? And they've had to like retroactively say like, oh, that's because this person was here, there, there. But like Phase 3, I feel like they're doing a better job at distinguishing these characters and saying, okay, here's where you are. And you don't necessarily need everybody. So in this particular instance, you still kind of found yourself where like, okay, we have Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. So he really hasn't had an MCU movie by himself. He's always had Iron Man there. He's always had some other character helping. And I think that this is my
biggest complaint. Iron Man Jr. I'm so excited, guys.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
And so I love that they even the metal suit. They even had the Time magazine cover of Iron Man Jr. and it's like a baby Spider-Man crying, on the cover of it, like they took that and they took it and flipped it and used it in the movie because that's been people's complaints. You can't knock them for, dude, these guys took everything that anybody ever said and just threw it in the movie. It was
I honestly never had a problem with any of that though. I know that a lot of people have wanted to get to this point quicker, I guess, but I just, I've liked that they've done something different because we've had two different Spider-Men that have had their own, they've been in their own separate worlds, and for them to take the opportunity to do something different, I've actually appreciated. And I mentioned this to Ryan. I rewatched Homecoming and Far From Home recently, and both of those really were stock up for me in terms of just like really appreciating them, enjoying them more upon rewatching.
I think for me, it's not necessarily that. Like I have no issue with these three movies the way they did them. I think my Iron Man Jr. comments were more because I felt like this is how it was going to be with him for his whole career. Yeah, because had no idea how they were going to be able to actually accomplish a straight up reset like they did. Right. Of course, leave it to Marvel to do it successfully.
Yeah. Perfect.
Right. And to your point, like even in the last one, like you had Tony Stark not there, but he was technically still there, right? And you still had a lot of that where he still had all the technology. So they finally did a full reboot of like, let's bring him down to street level. Let's do that. So this opens up a lot of doors. We've seen Daredevil now, so now you can get that Daredevil Spider-Man crossover street level type stuff. And Matt Murdock's not even going to remember who Spider-Man is. So like there's going to be some cool stuff they can do now at that level. He can pop into, I doubt he will, but he could pop into, the Disney Plus series like Hawkeye or whatever, like with the fact that
I have a feeling like that's probably going to be what happens tomorrow when that Hawkeye episode drops. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, Vincent D'Onofrio will probably play a big role in that episode, but I feel like we could.
I would not be surprised. I'm not expecting it. I would not be surprised. There's a lot of timing. I feel like there's a lot of timing put into decisions behind what they do.
I mean, but you think about Disney. They did this with Mandalorian. They tee up things in the shows that pay off in the movies with Skywalker and Mandalorian, and then with this, I just feel like because the Matt Murdock thing in Spider-Man is so like. It seems so servant to something else, not necessarily that. I mean, it's that the whole lawyer element goes nowhere, and
that's what makes that's what's so exciting about the whole appearance is what does that mean? Like,
it probably will though, because if you look at She-Hulk by day she's a lawyer, so like. Again, I think where you're going to see Daredevil show up is more of that series. Like, I think in this one, the Kingpin was the tease.
God, I hope that series is going to be better than I think it's going to be then.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but it opens the door to where I don't think Daredevil's going to show up tomorrow. If he does, that's amazing. But, like, I just feel like this is the special thing for Spider-Man, like having Kingpin show up the week before in Hawkeye, just to say like, okay, we're going to touch the MCU and Netflix. But I just feel like if he shows up tomorrow in that episode, it's going to cheapen the huge reveal from Spider-Man. And so I think it's just one of those that like we're going to see him in probably some of the MCU stuff or some of the Disney Plus stuff to kind of introduce him. But
I don't know if it cheapens, because that's such a that's like the Spider-Man reveal is obviously like still a fan servicey thing, but like it's not even like the Daredevil or Matt Murdock thing's not even comparable in my opinion. Like,
yeah,
I don't think that, because ultimately if they're trying to get Daredevil on Disney Plus, like that's where they want him to be. I don't necessarily think that it cheapens what they did in No Way Home. If anything, people will watch this show and then they go see, and they haven't seen Spidey, they'll go see Spidey and be like, oh, like,
yeah. And I mean, Marvel's made it a point to let people know that these Disney Plus shows are on the exact same level as their movies. Like they're going to be in the same universe. They're definitely not, but they're going to say that they are, and they're going to put them in there whether we want them to or not. But the Doctor Strange trailer, hint.
Yeah.
But they're going to throw that stuff in there. So I don't see any reason to hold back from it. If you're gonna make them a part of it, you got to make them a part of it all the way around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so
I mean, you got the Echo thing in there and all the hard of hearing stuff. So I mean, there's
yeah. Well, and that's another thing. Like Echo is from the Daredevil universe, so there's a whole nother layer to where he could show up in that series because she is getting her own series. So there's a lot of spots he can show up, and maybe you get some kind of small brief cameo or something like that. Again, it'll be interesting to see how deep they go with the Daredevil Kingpin, or if they're really just wanting to set up Kingpin for future series to show like, oh, he is the boss over everything. Right.
Yeah. But like Ryan was talking about before we switched to anything else, like Ryan was saying about Iron Man Jr. and everything. My only gripe, and I love Tom Holland, I love this trilogy. My only gripe was that he never had that, and even when he did have that little build your own suit moment, it got glossed over, with a few YouTube videos, and that was all you really saw of it until the end of Homecoming. So you never really had that, like you were talking about, that hard moment where he had to figure all this stuff out on his own. He did
kind of have that moment in Far From Home when he's on the jet and he uses Stark's tech to build his own suit, and that moment is I'm talking about the Stark without Stark tech. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, you technically got it in Civil War. But you technically had a little bit with Civil War, though, right? So Civil War, you had where he had his first suit before Tony got there, and he had like he had already figured out the lenses. Yeah. So I mean, like he had some stuff, but I mean, it has been so long since we saw that.
I just feel like it was glossed over that aspect of his character.
Again, though,
it was such a big role.
I know that's probably a complaint. I just if they had done all that, people would have complained that they're rehashing things. So it's like, what are you going to do?
Kind of like Bruce Wayne's parents kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's the same thing. It's like Crime Alley. It's like, oh, you're going to show Crime Alley again. Yeah, we are. And it's Batman vs. Superman, and it's the best version. You're going to love it. Sorry, Britt. I promised I wouldn't talk about DC, but
I need my counter.
Sorry.
I need my counter.
Yeah, right. I do need to eat my words a little bit. I bashed him pretty hard for putting the Iron Spider suit in this movie, and it did serve a practical purpose with the arms with him fighting Doc Ock that I appreciated. So,
and that was really it. Again, that was really the only time they used the suit.
Again, we thought we were going to be on that bridge for an hour plus, but luckily it was only like 15 minutes.
And I will say, I will say that Holland handled himself really well as far as capturing those guys and getting that. I mean, like to begin with, I was like, holy crap, we tied this up in a neat little bow real quick, didn't we? He caught those guys within the first 45 minutes of the movie.
I like that. I mean, I enjoyed that. That's what I kind of meant with the villains thing. Like it was a nice little misdirect with kind of all the marketing.
Well, and it gave all the villains their opportunity to talk, and that mistrust to be built in, and all that.
I'm
they
one
had
of
to
a
be there.
scientist myself.
Yeah. Yes,
He's
that
at the
was
cage.
amazing. I loved it. I loved it.
Well, you had that, and then you got to see like Sandman like protecting him for a second, and then he's like, "Wait a minute, who are you?" Like, there was those little building pieces to really show that they're not all bad, especially at the given points in time. So that was another piece about this was it wasn't all at the same spot, even if it was the same Doc Ock and Green Goblin. It was different times in their life when they were pulled over. Which
Ain't
is
it the truth,
cool.
Brandon? Ain't the truth?
Folding up his clothes every time he took them off, and then holding them to the side.
I did love that little moment that when Ock kind of extracts the nano suit and thinks that he's going to be able to utilize it, and then Peter's actually the one that can control, and he uses it for the rest of the
that was it.
to control him. That was great, because I totally, it's like another element of like subverting expectations, like
Basement Blues. It's kind of, we'll go around the horn real quick here.
This is a good question right here.
I'm gonna say Goblin.
Brandon, what you got? Okay,
Goblin.
Alan.
If we're going straight villain, it's Goblin. It's got to be.
Britt.
I don't know, man. I really like Doc Ock, like, and the fact that you really got to see his arc a little bit more of like he really isn't a bad guy. It's the arms making him do a lot of the stuff. Yeah. So I love that where they really got to rehash that.
I would say Goblin,
Electric.
Yeah. But I really, really enjoyed the inhibitor chip part of, and how that kind of shifted his character. So I'd probably have to go Doc Ock. Yeah.
I mean, I did like the tree. I did like the tree in the prison there, but
that was if I had a gripe, I don't mind. Honestly, I feel like Marvel and Sony, I feel like they used the humor in some of the serious moments. I feel like they used that humor so they wouldn't have to slow down the pace for very long, so they keep the movie going. Because I mean, it did have a lot. It did have to maintain a fast pace, but they did a good job with it. But my only complaint is that they had already put 5 villains in it. Couldn't we have put one more and made it the Sinister Six? You know what I mean? We had 5 villains. You know, I mean, we were so damn close.
So that's a good question.
That was a hell of a balancing act they just performed there, Alan. Don't you start sticking more stuff in there?
but I want to ask that question though, because I actually had it as one of my notes. Like, if you could add a villain, right? And I'm not talking about go back to one of the movies and grab one that's already there. So we didn't get any new villains, right? We got all the same villains we've seen before. There wasn't any new moving us forward. But if you could have added one more to the Sinister Six, I mean, you've got a lot out there we haven't even touched, like Craven or whatever. But like, what character would you have added? And let's assume they did a good job with them. But like, what character would you have finished off that the Sinister Six?
Mysterio, for sure. I loved his character in Far From Home. With all the craziness that was going on in this movie, I feel like that could have been a fun one to squeak in.
You already had a lot of that already with Strange involvement in terms of just the crazy.
I mean, that's kind of what that's like a counterbalance to that, I guess. That's kind of what I mean. Like those two would be fun to have in a movie together.
Kind of along that same vein, I think that if you would have brought Toombs in and had the Vulture, and they had their Stark Tech upgrades in that final battle, he was familiar with the Chitauri technology. He could have helped build those suits, make the modifications for everybody, and he would have blended in pretty well with them too. Plus Michael Keaton. I like Michael Keaton.
I mean, we've hinted at a lot, right? We had the Vulture has already been seen. We had the Scorpion technically was seen in the prison with the Vulture. We could have went back and got
wasn't
there
a hint of Scorpion in that Rift sequence? Pretty sure I saw a Scorpion tail figure.
I know I saw Rhino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where I was saying, like, I want to go back and watch it and slow it down.
That's how I remember looking up at that. I was like, what's going on?
But yeah, there's a lot they could have brought in. Again, they could have brought in new ones. I did like the the nod to Ned becoming Hobgoblin a little bit when the Andrew and Toby were talking about, yeah, my best friend turned into Green Goblin, but
And I promise I won't
And,
become a
you know,
villain and
try
try
to
and
kill
kill
me.
you. And Tom Holland's like, what the hell?
yeah. And again, if people don't know in the chat and stuff, like essentially Ned is Hobgoblin, whether he turns into it or not. I think they've actually potentially made it to where he can, because now he doesn't remember Peter, so he doesn't even have that friendship anymore, which could make an interesting fight scene a couple movies from now of like, you know, Tom Holland's Peter remembers him, but he doesn't remember Peter, you know, in that sense. But
got a Winter Soldier and Captain America situation going on.
Yeah. So it could be an interesting one if they go that way, and it's a way to bring in a Goblin without them rehashing Green Goblin, right? Like same character pretty much, but just not Green Goblin because we've already seen him twice, or I guess technically 3 times. But yeah, so like going through that, right? We had a really great, you know, ending sequence. They all forgot that they were Peter. I'll talk about it in a minute because I think that there's a huge plot hole around that, and that's my only real big caveat to the movie. But we'll come back to that one. But then we had the end credit scene, right? We had the mid credits, we had the end credits, mid credits being Venom. I'm sure you guys all watch Venom as well, so we kind of saw that as their end credits, where he kind of just disappeared and ended up in the universe. What did you guys think about Eddie Brock coming in, talking to, you know, football's life?
Football's life.
That's what I was gonna say. It was Danny Rojas. That's all I really thought about that. It was Danny Rojas. Danny Rojas.
And again, one thing that kind of stood out to me was he was asking the bartender about everything, right? And he was learning that there's superheroes, right? Because apparently in Venom's universe, the other Sony universe, there's no heroes there, because he's asking about all these, and you know, and he's like, oh yeah, and then there's the Hulk, and there's the reference to Iron Man, and that kind of stuff. So he's like, oh, okay, so there's like good people, which, you know, is what he's wanting to do now.
I'll be honest, I was not a fan of the Venom post-credit sequence. Was not a fan of this post-credit sequence. Again, it just kind of felt like a threat. I feel like they were just like, first off, they were just like I said with the Let There Be Carnage one, like we gotta film something. Like we got 2 hours. Like can we put something together? We gotta do it for 2 movies now. And then also, like, I get the symbiote was left behind. I don't understand what Sony's doing now after that. Like
I assume they're leaving a small amount behind so that there's the opportunity for Tom Holland's Black Suit Venom storyline, but they can also have their own other Venom story with Tom Hardy and Eddie Brock. I'm assuming that's why they did that, because they're not gonna leave all their properties over there all the time. So they gotta.
But I just don't get because like Morbius is in the same world as the Vulture,
and Toby's Spider-Man. It's weird. Like it's
actually
I don't
know. I left this movie more, oddly enough, more excited for the MCU than I am for the Sony stuff now. Which I wouldn't have expected.
I was gonna say, Britt, you got to help us out here. We have no idea what's going on, and it seems like you've got a better idea of what it is than us.
So I have an idea around the Venom stuff. The one piece there with the confusing right now, I agree 100%. Sony, it seems confusing with Morbius and Vulture being over there, but keep in mind with the Loki series, like when you get into these variants and you get in these time streams, right, it doesn't necessarily mean they're totally different, right? So it could be the same Vulture, but in that particular world, he's on one of the branches, right, of that same universe, which has created a new one. So maybe I'm gonna use that. I know it's a bad excuse with
for sure.
That was my thoughts exactly, Brandon.
Yeah,
thank you.
So we're gonna have to see Morbius, because again, Sony always worries me. I'm not gonna lie. All the other Spider-Man movies and things like that, like I was really excited after the Andrew Garfield one that they weren't doing as good as the MCU, so maybe Spider-Man would come back. But after these movies, after Venom, the money they're making, they're not coming back.
No.
They're just going to collab like this. But kind of going to that symbiote that's left behind. I actually think they're going to go towards like an Agent Venom approach. So again, Venom attaches to multiple different people throughout the comic book history, but there's one where he attaches to Flash Thompson and he becomes Agent
not
Venom.
that Flash Thompson. I'm sorry, we can't. Please, dear God, don't let that be him. Oh my God, don't let that happen.
I really think again there's that
I think a yellow symbiote already attached to his head. This movie.
I mean, the only reason I say that is he's gotten a lot of screen time. He's got a lot of screen time to do nothing in this series.
In all honesty, I feel like
Brett,
I would
put that out there.
I understand there's a lot of like kind of like equity behind these characters like Zendaya and whoever plays Ned, Jacob, is it Batalon?
Ned. It's Ned.
Yeah.
That's
I really hope that they leave well enough alone with those characters. I think there's opportunity for bringing MJ back into the fold somehow, but I kind of hope that his life is actually behind him. And I don't know. I just hope they don't like hit the undo button too quick on any of that.
It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard how they look at it because you got to also think that they're all at the same college, right? So Flash, Ned, and Mary Jane, they're all, or MJ, they're all at MIT. Yeah, so they're all at MIT.
But Peter's not.
Right, so he's not. But I mean, again, I think if you're going to bring in MJ at some point, it's probably him checking in on her, right? Stalking her of some sort over at MIT or bringing him that way. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, it said in the chat, too, about Secret Wars. I mean, it is a greenlit movie. Secret Wars, the comic run is where we got the black suit Spider-Man. So there is the potential that they're kind of leaving Venom to do that, and then maybe Venom spawns off of that. And that's where I think we're going to get a different Venom than Eddie Brock. Yeah, you know, who knows? Maybe Danny Rojas is the new Venom.
Venom is life
attached to him.
Venom is life.
But I don't know. I mean, I think to Alan's point, like Venom's so profitable. I mean, you saw Spider-Man 3 did so well with money just because of all the first viewings of anticipating an awesome Venom and then getting, you know, Topher Grace's Venom and people being disappointed. So, you know,
it's
Venom
a very
is good.
It's just a very head scratcher of an end credit scenes in terms of, okay, they had that, like that was the whole talking point of Let There Be Carnage. And I hadn't even seen the movie and everybody was talking about, oh, Tom Hardy's Venom's going to be facing off against Tom Holland at some point. This is the best. And then they're like, nah, not doing that.
They're like, no.
I think it's still the talking point of like Venom learning that he can be a hero. I think that it's not a Spider-Man thing. I think it was another credit in scene for Sony to show that Venom 3, Lethal Protector, or whatever you're going to call it, is him being this good anti-hero to another level. And I think that by him learning that the Avengers existed, he now believes he can do that kind of stuff.
You got to be careful with that because it becomes a real shallow character really quick. Like part of the intrigue with that character is that dark side, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's just weird that they went from the cutscene on Let There Be Carnage where he's like licking the screen like he wants to bite his head off to
that was all both those scenes are so
wanting
weird.
wanting to emulate him in the next one. It just didn't. I don't know. I don't know what to make about it.
Weird. It was just weird.
I'm serious.
I feel like Sony was like, okay, I'll let you make this movie, but we got to do this mid-credit scene. And Marvel,
and I'll let you.
Like,
I'll let you have,
just like, whatever, man. Go ahead.
I'll let you have this much symbiote so you can do something with it. And that's all you're getting. You know, you're not getting Tom Hardy.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that that's kind of the other part, right, that I don't understand as the plot hole. So the one that I don't get is all these people came through the universe because they knew Peter. They knew of Peter. They were being called for that. And I don't know how Venom and Tom Hardy come through this portal into the universe because they don't know of Peter Parker, or at least to my knowledge, unless I need to go back and watch Venom the first Venom and like slow it down. I don't remember him ever knowing a Peter Parker.
What if it were possibly the hive mind from somewhere else that knew a Peter
Good
Parker?
God, if we get that cerebral with these movies.
I heard someone say that too, break that down of like that could be the potential, but wouldn't we have seen all of
yeah,
like all of the Venoms and stuff coming through, or maybe they did and they're just in different areas, but
yeah,
like
yeah.
I mean, is it possible that this isn't, and maybe it isn't, but maybe that this is not what brought him into this universe? It wasn't the spell.
Well, he disappears after the spell though, so
yeah,
I would have assumed that was the reason.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question.
I don't know. Maybe it was.
Maybe they shouldn't have had that end credit scene.
I mean, yeah, that's.
Maybe they just maybe stuck it there, like you're saying.
I guess the hive mind transcends universes. Like maybe that Venom is also connected to the Topher Grace Venom from Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, it could be.
He existed.
Yeah, that's what I
mean. He existed. They talk about fighting an alien, so it happens.
John McIntyre says Venom was a member of Guardians of the Galaxy. Maybe he'll show up there.
Yeah, I mean he's been everywhere. I mean, and again, in some of the recent series, he's essentially venomized every character in the MCU at this point. So like, you really could he could show up in the Deadpool movie whenever it comes out.
Yeah,
I mean, it would make a ton of money.
The hive mind thing is a cop out. They can use it for pretty much anything that they want to.
That's true.
So, yeah.
So it's an interesting one. So kind of going from that mid credit to the end credit. I mean, I want to get y'all's thoughts because I'm not too high on the whole actual end credit scene with the Doctor Strange stuff. But I'll start with you, Brandon, because I know you try to dodge a lot of trailers. It's harder now that you're doing this kind of stuff on the streams. But like, what did you think about that end credit scene?
I will say that before seeing that trailer, I was excited about the possibility, like what could become of a Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness directed by Sam Raimi, the possibilities, what that could entail. Seeing the trailer, I was like, nah.
Yeah.
Good.
That's how I felt. It went a completely different direction than I was anticipating.
Yeah.
Now, like I almost felt like it was going to be something closer to what this movie, was doing, but it just I don't know. It got a little low-key on me.
Yeah.
not
I
that
don't
I
know
didn't
what it
enjoy
was.
low-key, but like I don't know. It's just not what I was anticipating.
I mean, and it could end up being similar to the Far From Home or No Way Home thing. It may just be where they can't show you anything because they don't want to give away any of the cameos that are going to be in it or any of the other stuff. I mean, they may just be the same crap over and over again for every trailer that they show. They may have the woods scene with instead of the bridge, it'll be in the woods. Every trailer will have 2 minutes of woods. We have no idea.
I just thought the construction of that post-credit scene was weird too. It was like, I don't know, they were playing some little like clips from the movie you just watched, and then there was like trailer cuts, but then there was also just kind of like some like straight up footage kind of
B-roll footage.
Weird.
It was like a shell game.
It's like they were trying to they don't know what's happening. To
you,
show you what this thing is, but the movie's called The Multiverse of Madness, and like it just didn't. I felt like it wasn't translated at all to the audience, whatever they were trying to do.
And then they had the Doctor Strange will return. Like, like this wasn't his movie. Like we don't,
right?
Yeah. No, and that was kind of my problem too. Was like you could have just given us like him finding Wanda right out in the field with the trees and being like, "I'm going to need your help" or whatever. Like I could have just done with 10 seconds of that and bam. Yeah. That give me that as the end credits. Like, okay, awesome. Like, and they could have done some other stuff, but like, some of the scenes where they're showing potentially some of these bosses, the very end scene where they show you the evil Doctor Strange, or Sorcerer Supreme, which is, the one from What If or potentially
Yeah.
the one we saw in What If. Like, it was just so much that they were like, you didn't need to tell me. Like, that should have been the huge reveal in
Yeah.
the movie.
It was also
So-
like you just got out of watching a 2.5-hour movie of like multiverse craziness, and it was just too much. Like, like here's another one for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing it again.
yeah.
Well, then like we just solved the multiverse, right? Like we just solved this whole issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And closed the portals by doing the spell, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's back. Like,
Yeah.
and we already know it's kind of back from the Loki series, but like, yeah, it was kind of weird that
Yeah.
it didn't line up.
Kind of went off the rails a little bit on me
That's
for
what I
sure.
it was one of those. I was described the guy that went and saw the movie that I work with. He was like, yeah, I had to go to the bathroom, so we just got up and left. And I was like, normally I would have called you a moron for doing that, but you didn't really miss anything, so
Yeah.
you're good, man. Let me go ahead and
probably
tell you
better
what
off
happened. This,
than
this,
that,
this,
yeah.
and this. All right, you're good. That was it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of like closing thoughts, and we're at an hour 30 of the stream and stuff, but like closing thoughts, what are you guys looking forward to potentially, and what this sets up in the future? Like, what do you guys want to see? I saw there was a question earlier in the chat about, future Spider-Man movies and things like that. But like, what do you guys want to see, whether it's Tom, Andrew, Toby, any of the villains or anything like that? Like, what would be your next movie in the Spider-Man franchise?
Hashtag make TASM 3 with Andrew Garfield. Yeah, that would be awesome. More realistically, I would say I'm very excited about kind of like the everything New York related. So from Daredevil to Kingpin to how Spidey plays into that. Some grounded MCU stuff on the big screen would be pretty cool. Yeah.
For me. I would kind of say the same thing. I think in addition to wanting to see Tom Holland, Spider-Man, have some sort of, involvement with Kingpin and Daredevil and the like, as well as wanting to see some sort of Andrew Garfield furthering of that character. And I think obviously the internet wants it as well. There's been a
Marvel will probably listen
push.
to him.
Yeah,
DC.
But I also think, I also want to see. I don't know what again, the Venom thing, I just don't understand. I don't understand what's going to happen with that in terms of Tom Hardy's Venom, why they want to keep it on its own little island. Those characters are so wrapped up in each other. Like, I don't understand why you would want to, since you have both of them, why are you keeping them so separate? I don't understand. When you had this window and it was the most logical thing to do, and then they're like, nope, we're just kidding. We're not doing that. We're going to keep them right here. And they continue to hint that they're going to come to blows at some point, Tom Holland and Tom Hardy, but I just don't understand why seemingly be heading that way and then detour again. I don't know. But anyway,
after Let There Be Carnage, part of me wants this symbiote that was left behind to just like be given, like there be an MCU Venom and it'd be a different actor.
Well, that's what it seems like it's going to happen. Which that's fine, whatever, but I don't know. I just don't understand.
I don't know. For whatever reason in my head, I can't picture those two going at it in a Spider-Man movie. So maybe it's just a mental.
Well, they could be bringing Garfield into the
it makes sense.
He does want to fight an alien. He said that. Maybe that was kind of a hint there. A little drop.
Well, that's the thing is like that would be the only version, right? That hasn't had the Venom yet, because we had Venom and Toby's already. So like Andrew Garfield needs a Venom, and maybe he is, and they're just on opposite sides of the U.S. So it could be that's how they bring him back, and he shows up in either the next Venom movie, or they do give him his own movie, and we see a little bit of crossover. It is strange with Sony though. Like again, this whole, like in the last Morbius trailer, him saying like, I'm Venom. No, I'm just kidding. I'm,
You're right.
Michael Morbius. But like, and even in that trailer, they talked about we haven't seen this except for that creature over in San Francisco. So like, it does feel like Morbius is in Venom's world, but you mentioned it too. Like,
But also,
Vulture's
like, how
there.
does he even know that phrase? It's not a phrase that's like out there, like for other people to have. Like, it's not like Venom's got T-shirts that say "I'm Venom." I
They're
just don't
selling
understand.
t-shirts.
I don't understand how he even knows the phrase.
Well,
Eddie doesn't have a
and
job
again,
anymore, so they got to go lean on the merch.
Yeah.
well, and again, I mean, you have to
We got
think
merch.
Sony didn't do a very good job on the first couple Spider-Man of like handling how they do these
Yeah.
universes and all the villains. So, if you look at Tom Holland Spider-Man, Kevin Feige and MCU are very much involved in everything with the story and all that, even though it is Sony. But like, I honestly just don't think Kevin Feige cares about the Venom movies or Morbius or whatever. That's my thoughts. So.
Yeah, he's like, if you're not going to let me have them, then screw you, man.
Well,
No, I don't know.
he also sees them like I see them, which is they're not that great. I mean, Tom Hardy's good in them, but the movies themselves are like meh.
Yeah.
But
After Let There Be Carnage, I'll be honest with you, Venom 3 comes out. I'm kind of at the point where like I watch it, but I don't really care.
The only other thing that I was going to add,
that's where they'll have to have Spider. They'll have to have a Spider-Man or Sensational or Sinister Six or something. They're going to have some huge in there to draw the crowd back to Venom.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just seems like things were. I think that it's just an instance of things being kind of in flux. They've even said it in the press that originally they were going to do some Craven storyline because they thought that the MCU deal was over, and so this movie wasn't going to have all this stuff in it. So they were banking on just setting up, just moving to their own universe, Sony exclusively, and then it seems like they're like, now things are kind of like, oh, we can still use some character. All right, well, now they're like. Yeah. Still playing this limbo game. But anyway, the other two things that I was going to say is I do want to see Holland's character, integrate like a Miles Morales and a Spider-Gwen at some point. It just seems like it's such an obvious thing for them to do. And I was really hoping and thinking that maybe they'll actually kind of push that into this movie. And then maybe that'll be a secret because they pulled in, which it would have been a lot, but they at least having little hints of those characters. And now that MJ is seemingly in the rear view of Holland's thing, it seems like a Gwen Stacy character arc could be something they could use as well as Miles. And that's and integrating Kingpin and all these other characters in there. It's like having just played the Spider-Man PlayStation game, it's like a lot of that stuff that they did in that story could be really cool to see play out on screen.
I'm just wondering. I'm wondering when it comes to Gwen and it comes to Miles Morales, like how much rights the MCU has, and how much of that they're going to have to like literally be like, "Hey, Sony, like it
sounds like they've got a pretty awesome partnership after pulling. If they pulled this movie up, like I feel like they can. This movie just made the second most money of all time.
Yeah.
Like, well,
it's not. And it's not like. It's not like it's the MCU proper making Sony. All of this was Sony, essentially. They only borrowed Doctor Strange just to introduce this multiverse concept, essentially, is the only reason they needed him. But all the drive was Toby and Andrew's involvement, really. I mean, that was, in my opinion, what made people show up. All these other villains that were from those Sony movies. It wasn't a Feige MCU thing.
No,
created this box office. So it's not like they're relying heavily. So they're a little bit more on a level playing field now, where Sony was kind of crippling and needed Feige's help before. Seems like it's more,
if anything, like because this movie does have the way they were able to kind of weave this thing together. It does have like the brain power of that the MCU and Feige behind it. It's almost like that's really what they're partnering for is kind of that 100%. Brain power. And if that's the case, and Feige very much knows that Miles Morales or Gwen Stacy is something that would be fun to play with, it'd be kind of dumb for them to ignore what they're paying for.
And they did. And I know that Sony technically was in on, I know that Sony was in on Spider-Man Homecoming, but you know, Donald Glover, I know it was a little throwaway thing, but you know, he played Uncle Aaron, you know, he was
there.
Miles's uncle in there, you know, he's there somewhere. We just haven't seen him yet, which would have been a cool way to bring him in.
And he even references his nephew.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see, and that's kind of almost what I was expecting on one of these, you know, cutscenes. Like one after we didn't see Venom, I was like, okay, well, he's going to be one of these cutscenes. But like, I really would have loved to see, even if you didn't see Miles himself, but see his uncle again, either suiting up as
Prowler,
you know, Prowler, or
it's hard to
something
see
along those
him
lines.
doing anything.
That's what I was going to say. How fun!
His Uncle Aaron
fun,
was so stoned out of his mind. Like I just can't see him doing anything productive.
But how fun would that be to see Donald Glover play like a villain / anti-hero? I think I would personally like that. I've always liked him as an actor. Yeah, Uncle Aaron was high as hell and Homecoming, but you know, like it'd still be funny. It'd be cool. It'd be cool.
But I mean, I could see that most likely, like sooner than I could see Gwen Stacy. But at the same time, like if you do look at what they're doing with a lot of the new MCU or what they're doing on Disney Plus, we're seeing a lot of not necessarily gender swaps, but like we're seeing that with Kate taking over from Clint and things like that. We're getting the Young Avengers kind of set up, so it would make sense to see a Gwen Stacy with those Young Avengers. Potentially, you know, kind of breaking out into this, you know, street level New York style. So
and also, I mean, Into the Spider-Verse kind of threw both those characters on the microscope. So, I mean, it's ripe for it.
Now, I guess the question then becomes like, by introducing those two, does that take away or does that cause any confusion? Again, I know we all know like MCU is different than this Sony Spider-Verse, but like, you know, what does that do with those characters, you know, as you're comparing them?
Into the Spider-Verse proved that you don't like that movie threw everything at the audience. Like there was no like setup, there was no build up to it. Everything was in one movie and it paid off beautifully. I think audiences will buy it.
Well, I think if it did anything, it shows that it doesn't have to be Peter Parker for it to be Spider-Man. And that's the biggest takeaway for me is I'm not sure who owns the Miles Morales rights. I don't know if it's Sony. I really don't.
I have to imagine it's Sony. I think anything Spider-Man related.
I haven't seen.
I mean, Into the Spider-Verse is a Sony thing, so
yeah. I wasn't sure, you know, so I didn't know what it was. I know, but it was animated. There's weird when you get into the animated stuff. Marvel's done plenty of Spider-Man animated stuff. So I don't know where that line is at. So I don't know who owns the human version.
Fox had some of the animated stuff, and now they own
I
that.
Feel
so,
if Marvel or Disney had the rights to live action Miles, we probably wouldn't have even seen Peter Parker. They probably would have just done Miles Spider-Man from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, it would have kept them from ever having to give anything to Sony. You know,
I mean, if you think about how much, make a lot of money.
A whole lot of money would have had to share it with anybody. Yeah,
right.
But I mean, again, we've got you know, now this whole branching evolution of Spider-Man. We don't know what'll happen, whether they're going to bring back Andrew, Toby. Where they're going to go with, you know, Tom Holland Spider-Man compared to, you know, what they're doing with the villain verse over at Sony. You know, we've got this whole new setup of Young Avengers, which again, Spider-Man has been involved with some of these, you know, street level teams in a lot of the animated series and things like that. So it would be interesting to see him kind of step back from, you know, being in space compared to now just kind of fighting normal crime, you know, Daredevil, things like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the MCU is going to look like a year from now. I mean, we've still got some big movies around the corner with Doctor Strange. I mean, you've got Secret Wars that's been hinted at, and even with kind of this madness, I mean, that's where we could get the introduction to some of these other characters like Gwen Stacy or Miles, you know, from other universes or whatever. So
sure,
I'm excited.
Yeah, and Spider-Man in those Young Avengers type scenarios in the comics and things like that, he's taking on more of a leadership role in that as well. So that would be cool to see Holland's Spider-Man take on take on that role. And
Yep.
you know, but I don't know.
Well, cool. An hour 45, so probably want to start wrapping stuff up. But any like last thoughts from any of y'all?
Go see it.
Spidey.
If you haven't and you've endured
if you're one of the few that have not seen it,
go see it again.
And you've listened to all our spoilers and you haven't seen it, go see it.
Right.
I would, and I will say, I don't know how everybody else feels about this, but I walked away from that movie completely happy with the way they left Tobey's Spider-Man. If he never had another outing as Spider-Man, I'm okay with that. They let you know that him and MJ worked it out. You know, he was still doing his thing. Andrew's the one who needs it. Yeah, it was a nice.
It really felt like a
Tobey's.
swan song for Tobey for sure.
Yeah, so I don't want to see it. I don't want to see some Logan type Spider-Man movie with Tobey in it. Just give me Amazing Spider-Man 3. That's it. That's my closing.
I agree.
Right there. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. Brandon, Britt.
Go ahead, Britt.
I mean, I was gonna say, like I said before, at this point, Spider-Man is perfect. It's perfect, guys. Like again, they had so many nodes on all the different stuff throughout the movie.
Well, look at you.
It makes me want to go watch it a couple more times and really see all the stuff I missed. Because again, I love a rowdy crowd, but I'm sure I missed a couple things here and there because of it. So.
I love a rowdy crowd without 2-year-olds in it. I'll say that. A rowdy crowd that knows when to be rowdy.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
Brandon, anything?
I mean, I don't have much else to add. I love the movie. I'm excited to see it again, and yeah, I think this is one of those things that I think it's a good bow to put on 3 trilogies of movies, essentially. I think there weren't any more movies with these 3 characters, I'd be satisfied, but I'm still excited to see what they do with Holland and if they ever integrate. I don't like Alan was saying, I don't expect nor necessarily want to see Tobey in anything else. I think it's a good send off for him. And I mean, the guy, he's not acting as much anymore anyway. He's like, he hasn't acted since like 2014 live action. So, yeah, I think that it's a perfect kind of character arc really for all of them. But if things progress, I'm excited to see what happens. So, that's it.
Hashtag make Amazing Spider-Man 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a big hat. That's a pretty long hashtag.
That's right. Thanks everybody for watching. Definitely hit the subscribe button, notification bell. We are on Twitter at CAPECAST Show, and we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/CiNEMACHiNE. We appreciate all of the support that we get there. Britt, it was great having you on.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, thank you for putting so much effort into your screen.
For our show. Yeah.
That's
we should try and do that sometime.
Once a month I can sneak away, come over here on a Tuesday.
Well,
I gotta go.
See you again. We got so much going on with Marvel. I may have to come over here more often than that.
Nice. I love it. Cool. All right, gentlemen. Until next time.
So long.
Amen.